Hello everyone and welcome to the third video of our e-bike series for 2024. Today, we're going to be talking about the Transition Relay Alloy PNW version. Let's get into it. Let's do what we always do. The first impressions of this bike. The bike descends really well despite the weight of it. Because it's an alloy version and it has some big components on there, it weighed in at about 52 pounds. But even at that weight, it was very stable and it handled steep terrain really well and chunk with no problems at all. It climbs okay despite its weight. I have a feeling that the alloy version is much different than the carbon, which we didn't get to demo out. But for being a super heavy burly bike, it did climb pretty well.
All right, I'm gonna put this thing on boost because I can. I don't like to climb, so the boost works well for me.
The weight, like I was saying, is a little heavy because it's the alloy, 52, 53 pounds in the small frame. That was a little heavier than I was anticipating. The motor was really good, it was fast. It's the Fazua Ride 60 motor, similar to what I have demoed out in the Santa Cruz Heckler SL. And the range was actually really good considering I used it a lot in like their turbo mode, which we'll go into it in a little bit too. Some of the key geos on this bike being that it was a small frame. So it is an alloy, it's gonna be a little heavier. We got the GX PNW version, which is the build that has the heavy components in there. There were fun components, don't get me wrong, but it was the heavier bike. The bike has 29 wheel in the front and a 27.5 wheel in the rear. It has 170 mil of travel in the front and rear as well. Being the PNW version, it has the Fox coil shock in the rear and the big Fox 38 fork in the front. Transition made bikes from an extra small to an extra large, which is really handy for shorter riders too. I think they're one of the few brands that do make extra small bikes. And with an e-bike, that's really key for smaller riders because their extra smalls come with 27 front and rear as well, which is really cool. The reach on this bike for me felt a little encroached, similar to the Heckler SL that I demoed as well, but it was by no means a con. I just felt a little bit more encroached. I like something a little bit longer reach. The wheelbase was great. I was really stable on the bike. I had no issues with that at all. I actually felt that the bike, for being small, had a pretty decently long wheelbase.
And the standover was okay. It was kind of high for me.
The geometry of the bike is adjustable with a flip chip, so you can change the rear wheel from a 27.5 to a 29er if you wanted to do that. Be sure to check out Transition's website. They list all that out in there and has all the key gear that you want to see. This bike comes with some pretty unique features. It's basically a two-in-one bike. The cool thing with this bike is that the battery is actually removable. That's one way to charge the bike. Actually, that's the only way to charge the bike, is by removing the battery. So with the removable battery, you can ride this bike as an analog or you can ride the bike as an e-bike. Okay, you need to get your shit together and start that again. The super cool thing about this is that you can ride the bike as an analog bike or an e-bike, which means if you want to travel with the bike, you can do so. Take the battery out, pack that sucker, and go somewhere. If you want to ride the bike in areas that e-bikes are illegal, go wherever you want with your bike. So I think that's one of the key pluses with this bike. One of the cons I found with the battery being removable is that there's a little bit of wiring right on top where you take the battery out. It wasn't a huge issue, but just something to look out for when you're putting that battery back in there so that the wires don't get caught where the battery clips in. One of the issues that I had when I got the bike was that the battery wouldn't stay engaged. And by that I mean, I took the battery out to charge, and when I would click it back in, the little clicky part on top kept getting tripped up by a wire that was in there. And so every time I would ride the bike, even over the slightest little curb, the battery would disengage and the bike would turn off. That was easily fixable. I took it to one of the transition shops here in my area, and they were able to just secure the wiring a little bit further up. So each time I would click the battery back on, it wouldn't be a problem. The battery would stay snug and nothing would disengage. And the way in which the battery clicks on is it's really super simple. And there is a plastic cover that goes on the down tube, and there's no tools to get the battery in and out, which is really convenient. There's just a little click key that you'll see to open up and close up the plastic cover on the down tube to secure the battery. I had no issues with the battery falling out or while riding or anything like that at all. Everything stayed secured and snug when I would take the bike on rides. There's this connecting lip right here that I line up all the way at the bottom. And so let me line that up there, put this in here. Oh wait, the wire was in the back. You gotta make sure this wire doesn't get stuck because you have to hear that click for you to know that the battery is in. And then all I do is cover this back up. Nice and simple. Flip that over and you got it. Battery is in, nice and snug. Riding the bike. I'm gonna start with climbing. Climbing this e-bike, because it was such a burly bike with 170 mil of travel and it was heavy, it was a little sluggish. It was okay to climb. I didn't have a lot of issues with it, but it was a little sluggish. Now, that's just the particular build that I did. I would love to demo out the Relay 160 Carbon because I have heard that that bike is a little bit better in terms of climbing. That's to say that when I put the bike in the highest setting, the bike did not have an issue climbing at all. Like, the motor clicked on really well. It gave me that extra boost that I needed when I was trying to really do something steep and a little technical. That wasn't a problem. It just wasn't the smoothest of climbers in the terrain I have here in Southern California.
All right, I'm gonna put this thing on boost because I can. I don't like to climb, so the boost works well for me.
Descending is where this bike really, really shines.
You can really feel the way the bike corners is so good.
This was a super cushy bike, let me tell you. The Fox components on this bike, the coil shock on this bike made the bike such a cushy ride. I absolutely love that. Despite the weight, it handled so much that I threw at it. Chunk or steep, I always felt confident that the bike was gonna perform really, really well. The geometry kept me centered on the bike at low and high speeds. Damn, that suspension platform is so smooth and cushy. I feel planted. Because the bike has a slacker head tube angle, meaning that the wheel comes out a little bit further out and away from the rider, it gave me the confidence to do steeps no matter what I was doing. And that's typically I guess it's what you want a slacker bike to do, right? The more further out, the more stable the ride is gonna be. We do have a lot of sand here in Southern California. I felt super confident that I wasn't gonna wash out. The geometry of this bike keeps you stable. I enjoy chunky terrain and I loved taking this bike down some of the rock gardens I have around me here. And again, I keep harping on this, but the slack head tube angle helped me feel confident so that if I was gonna go forward a little bit, the bike was gonna keep me there. It's gonna secure me there. I think the confidence also came in part based on the tires that Transition has on the bike. The PNW versions come with the Schwalbe, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I can never pronounce those tires right. The Schwalbe tires. You've got the Magic Mary Super Trail and the Big Betty in the rear, the Magic Mary in the front, the Big Betty in the rear. And that really did give me a lot of confidence that I wasn't gonna wash out. It was gonna keep me on both trunk and loose sand at all times. I touched on this earlier, but there are two versions of the Relay. There's the Relay and there's the Relay PNW. Both come in alloy and carbon. They are the exact same frame with different components. Both can run 160 mil of travel in the front and rear or 170 mil of travel front and rear. Both can run coil or air shocks. Both can run 36 fork in the front, 38 fork in the front. It doesn't matter. It's so customizable to what you want to ride and the terrain you want to ride it in. The bike can come with dual 29er or a mixed wheel like we were saying earlier. With the extra smalls, you can ride 27.5 front and rear. This is super advantageous for shorter riders. A lot of you have come to us asking what we would recommend for an e-bike for shorter riders, your 5'1" to 5'4". I'm 5'4.5". I really enjoy a 29er or a mixed wheel, but Candace, who's also part of our crew, she loves the 27.5" wheels as well. And she's 5 foot. 5'1", 5 foot. So on Transition's website, they talk about how the Relay is built with a purpose, right? It's built depending on how you want to ride it, where you want to ride it. It's built for the hard-hitting e-biker. Each bike comes equipped with a component specific for doing the type of riding you want to do. This is one of the things I think Transition is doing right. They're giving riders of all sizes and height options, right? So whether you want a lighter trail enduro bike with a 160 front and rear travel fork and rear shock, or a mixed wheel, or a 29er full suspension, or you want the burly, heavier bike with coil shocks in the back, a 38 fork in the front with 170 mil of travel, and TRP brakes with Schwably tires, Transition delivers all of that. Each build is purposefully built for the terrain you want to ride in. That is just amazing. So with that said, for me, for where I ride 90% of the time, I would choose the non-PNW Relay. Reasons being, it's 160 rear and front, it's air shock in the rear, even though the coil is super cushy and I loved it. I want a lighter bike. I want the carbon, I want the 36 in the front versus the 38, because frankly, I don't really need all that travel. I don't really need all of the features that the bike would come with. I do, however, need and would love to have TRP brakes on the 160 Relay, just because I love TRP brakes. So with that said, let's get into the builds a little bit so you all can see the different options that Transition have. They have two alloy versions, which is the NX and the GX PNW, the one that we demoed out. They have 4 carbon builds. One is a GX carbon build, one is a GX AXS, which is the wireless Bluetooth from SRAM. They have the XO wireless build and the XX AXS. Those are all Bluetooth wireless drivetrains from SRAM. For all the full specs, y'all, be sure to go to Transition's website. They have everything listed out there. And the cool thing is that right now, Transition is having a huge sale on every single build for the Relay. So be sure to go check that out. So for the motor, the battery, and the app, similarly to the Heckler SL, this bike comes with a Fazua Ride 60 motor with a 430 watt battery. The battery is located in the down tube, and that's where it comes in and out. Like I was saying earlier, it is removable, and that is again how you charge it. Being that I demoed the same motor, battery, etc. on the Heckler SL with this bike, the range is actually pretty good. Even though this bike is heavier and I was using it more in their full power, the range actually lasted quite a bit on the 17 to 18 miles that I put on this in one ride. Like I was saying, all of this pairs with a Fazua 360 app. The ring controller on the handlebar is really, really easy to use, and you can nudge it up and down depending on the mode you want to ride it in. With that said, there are 3 modes on this bike, just like other Fazua motors. You have the Breeze mode, which is the green, kind of like your Eco mode, and it's custom tuned by Transition to use in varied terrain. The River mode, the blue mode, is preset to match the amount of energy you're delivering to the pedals. And the Rocket mode, the pink, provides you the maximum power to help you tackle steeper climbs and challenging terrain. However, it does reduce the range you put in the battery, but it packs quite a punch, like it really does. So the Alloy Relay PNW was a lot of fun to ride despite the weight. For me, it was a lot here in Southern California. It's a lot of trail riding. The 170 front and rear was a little overkill, but it still felt like a super fun ride, no matter where I took it. Confident on descents, a little sluggish on the uphill, but if you're a descender and you want to do shuttles every single day, like, this bike is a really good option. I would love to demo the carbon version that has 160 mil front and rear, even with the air shock. The components that Transition put on these bikes, they're all Fox components. You can't go wrong with Fox components. So even though it's a lot of bike for me where I am, it's still a fun ride. Shuttle it everywhere you go. If you live in an area like the Pacific Northwest, Santa Cruz, even on the East Coast where you're gonna do a lot of steepy chunk, the bike is a really, really good option for you. I love that Transition caters to riders of all sizes, and they customize each build of this bike to fit what you want it to ride. So positive. Go on Transition's website, see all the different builds they have, and demo one out if you can. Transition also has a map on their website that lists where a lot of their retailers are. Just contact them and see if you can demo a bike out there as well. I don't think you're gonna be disappointed. The one thing I advise is get the trim or build that suits your riding style and where you're gonna ride. Do you own the PNW Relay or just the regular Relay? What do you all think? Comment below. Do you have the carbon? Do you have the alloy? Let us know in the comments. We want to hear your thoughts on the bike as well. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Be sure to subscribe and like and share. Have a great one, you guys.